I initially planned to talk about Sanshiro this week, but I haven't finished this book, so I'm going to talk about Festival and Game of the Worlds, a book that I recently finished reading. Festival, I read aloud. Game of the Worlds, I read silently, although I think I did read some excerpts of Game of the Worlds to people that I loved. A quick count shows that this is roughly the 16th Cesar Aira book that I have in my library. NDP 1602, they're really getting up there with the numbers. Translated by Catherine Silver. You'll notice that there are like 3 translators. There's Nick K. Storr, there's Chris Andrews, who usually does it, and then there's Catherine Silver. And I think what they're doing is they're ramping up the number of Aira novels that they put in one single book, because I think it's dawning on them that if they keep going at one book per novel, they're going to really, I don't know, it's going to be hard. Although Aira has outspokenly said that he prefers each work to be in its own little book. So he expressly does not want people to combine books like this, but I think combining the books like this is a great idea. I am very excited for Fave, which is coming out later this year, and I'll talk more about that later. I think that's going to be a batch by Chris Andrews, and here we have a little batch translated by Catherine Silver. This one really takes the cake when it comes to easily summarizable plots, or premises, I should say, for each work. Festival is a book where a famous filmmaker is invited to a film festival and is the star of the show, and it's just awkward and weird because he's brought his mother as his +1, and she's, just an old lady. Game of the Worlds is a book told from the perspective of like a boomer guy who is kind of reflecting on the game that his kids play, which is a game where you just go around and destroy worlds and planets, and they're actual worlds and actual planets, and the kids just like have fun playing this game, and they have esoteric arguments as to why it's improving and so forth. But both of these premises pass the test of when you say the premise, you just smirk. I think this is like almost like a George Saunders test, maybe. It's like if you say the premise of the story and you smirk a little bit, then that's the Saunders test for a premise. I just wanted to say that it is very fitting that we're talking about Festival tonight, because I spent a lot of time last night, instead of when I should have been reading Sanshiro, I was just reading some more of Infinite Jest. I kind of just opened up to where I'd left my bookmark in it last. I made a video like some years ago where I think I was under the influence of like alcohol or something and just lit a candle. I should put the link to that video in this description, and like talked about some pages of Infinite Jest in a really kind of probably annoying way. That's probably a must watch. But my bookmark was still where it was from that period of time when I was reading Infinite Jest, so like 2 or 3 years ago or something. And I read a few sections and loved them, and skipped to that bed repair portion and loved the heck out of that chapter. What does this have to do with Festival? Well, Cesar Aira loves inventing hypothetical works of art. It's a way that he... it's one of his ways of generating novels so quickly, I think, is that he's able not only to do the Chaplin-esque thing of having like a little premise and letting the events kind of fall in slapstick fashion over the rungs of the ladder of the premise, but he's also able to do the Borgesian thing of describing something that doesn't exist and letting all of the possibilities that fills his mind with populate damn near half of the novel and turn it into a novel essay. And what is he doing in Festival? He's not just inventing a hypothetical film, he's inventing a hypothetical filmography, complete with fans and scholars ideas and, people who have misconceptions about the ideas that are presented in the filmography. The filmography is sort of, feels infinite and weird and kind of, we'll get more into the exact filmography later, I hope, but yeah, it's even got detractors. And what other work has a fictional filmography in it but Infinite Jest? Everybody knows that, I wonder if because they have that new issue of Infinite Jest out, they might not want people to, like, post the book. Never mind. Anyway, that abortive thought aborted. There's this endnote 24, James O. Incandenza, a filmography. Now, this is a similar deal. It's like So this is one of the best parts of Infinite Jest. This is inarguable. This is like one of the best parts. It's like the part you can kind of just go back and return to and read like a little chapbook of poetry. I think it actually might be fun for, if you're a fan of Infinite Jest, to like make a little chapbook of just this section and just appreciate the work of art that just the footnote, just the end note is. Of course, that's like the pleasures of that are probably limited because of course, it depends on its context and it depends on being around things that aren't like it and so forth. But it's like a case of somebody coming up, an artist, a conceptual artist, an avant-garde novelist coming up with somebody's filmography and letting the person's filmography be way more conceptual and weird than any living person's filmography is. Any person, living or dead. I don't have any like quick, funny way of describing the filmmaker that David Foster Wallace comes up with in his little book, Infinite Jest. But I feel like Alex Sterrick's in Festival is like kind of like a mix between like Marker and Tarkovsky and like a B-movie director and like it's like if you started various B sci-fi movies or started various like early Cronenberg movies or something and then ended them with like extremely long meditative like Robbe-Grillet sections where people stop acting and stop moving and nothing happens. It's really bizarre movies that are described here, and that's one of the attractions of reading Festival. I don't want to spoil it all. I do think that you should read and you should be shocked by the qualities of the films that are described, because I think that Aira is counting on the reader being in disbelief that Alex Sterrick's films could be like they are described to be. I think that that allows you to inhabit more easily, and it probably allows the book's author more easily to inhabit the minds of both detractors and supporters of the filmmaker Alex Sterrick's. I think, Aira's writing books, he's writing a mile a minute, and he needs devices that are going to allow him to kind of very quickly and very deeply explore little dialectics. Like rather than writing just one sentence, writing a sentence and then describing the fictional context of that sentence, alluding to a lot of things that don't exist, and then describing the changing attitudes of the subject of the sentence, describing the, describing people who, like the two schools of thought that sentence engenders, basically. Like, he needs each paragraph of his book to kind of create a little scholarly empire that the rest of the book can be, if that makes sense. And I don't think it does. One of the cool things about Festival is that not only are we creating a hypothetical work of art or a hypothetical filmography, we're also creating a hypothetical scholarship, a world of scholarship around this filmography. The main character, really the main character of this novel turns out to be Perla Sobietsky, who is who's running the festival and who is a Sterrick scholar and who has written a book that I think she really wants Sterrick's to approve of, even though I think she knows that runs counter to the job of an academic to just tell it like it is or something. Perla is like the detective of this non-detective story, the person who is most intrigued by the puzzle of Sterrick's bringing his mother, and is most, just wants to get to the bottom of most of the things that are happening here. I think that the setting of this book is maybe this is the next thing I'll talk about, but the setting of this book is very intriguing and surreal, and I think that Perla and her compatriots, like what am I saying? Like the Casablanca, the atmospheric Casablanca of this novel, Festival, that takes place in this abbey where they're screening all of these movies. That's not a spoiler. All of the atmosphere is something that you should read up close. But I think she's the right detective for this weird, surreal setting. One of the things this book is useful for thinking about is the infinity of movies that we have available to us at all times. Like, the impossibility of our task as people who are meant to consume all the stuff in front of us is comparable to the impossibility of the task set before Alex Sterrick's and his mother of watching the few movies that they're required to watch each day to judge. All that stuff is too much, and you can't watch all that stuff and describe it adequately, and all that's left is really just the personal life that is the through line that runs kind of between the cracks of all that, if that makes sense. And so the book is kind of a dramatization of the through line that can be described and is kind of more worth talking about than the films in the actual festival. But I opened this spread so I could talk about the atmospheric nature of the book. I really liked, and I was reading the book out loud, and everybody who heard the book aloud really appreciated the surreal and otherworldly descriptions of the setting. I'm going to actually read an excerpt just to give you a taste of some of the actual beautiful gems that are in this unassuming little book. And this is one of the things I love about Aira, is that these gems are always spaced throughout his books, almost like carefully placed chocolate chips in like a chocolate chip cookie or something, making it good. Perla didn't show up at the Abbey as long as the sun was in the sky. She came only when the moon rose like a milk chocolate coin behind the bare and twisted branches of the trees in the park. The stone monsters adorning the building had turned ominous. Their arms and claws seemed to open and their paws flexed, preparing to pounce. Who could be sure that these were mere fantasies of fevered brains and not supernatural realities? Nobody knew for certain what happened at night in the park, which spread out like a triangle of shadows from the outskirts of the city all the way to the foreign refugees camps. It was dotted with a series of lakes connected by narrow canals. Many years before, ferries had moved between them, but time and neglect had reduced the ferries to rusted carcasses adrift in the water. This setting is valuable for its specificity, its intricacy. It's just wonderful to read in Catherine Silver's translation. There are like lovely little things that you can dwell on and that can color like the entire rest of the book. Like for instance, the presence of the foreign refugees camps in this passage. There's just so much to love here. I think that I just wouldn't want you to think that this takes place in a realistic setting. Although realistic concerns, like, for instance, how difficult it is for Alex Derricks's mother to get out of the car or something, or how hard it is to pay attention for more than one movie in a day, are also the subject matter of the books. I like that Aira at any given moment can take both the supernatural realities or the fevered brains of the people in the world into account. And also, one last thing while I'm filming this little section of the video is that I think this question, who is to say these aren't supernatural realities, is just another one of the many things that link Festival to Game of the Worlds and make these books a really good pair. Good job, New Directions, pairing these two together. I approve. I am a very smart, eloquent, and well-credentialed, highly respected, well-regarded, often viewed reviewer of literature and critic of literature. I am a PhD among PhDs. See, I have this little paper with script ideas of things that I should talk about. If you're trying to describe what kind of reviewer I am, think Beckett, think Pynchon, think Gaddis, think. Pepito Heliotropo is like a really good part of the book. Maybe a little tedious to read about if you're reading aloud, because it really is just that Aira trope of like him talking to himself and needing to invent somebody who's an enemy to the proceedings. Disclaimer, everything I say about the insubstantiality of Aira is meant both negatively and positively. Positively because I'm a fan, and then negatively because I don't want to lead you astray and tell you to fawn all over an author that you may not like. The last thing I'll say about the links between Festival and Game of the Worlds is that one of the coolest parts about Festival is the presence of gamers. Gamers are very interested in Alex Derricks, and I think that their interest is one of the coolest parts of this cool novel. And then it's an obvious link between this and the video game-based sci-fi, The Game of the Worlds, that follows. I like this bit where they show affection towards Derricks because they interpret somebody they interpret his warm reception because they find him funny, and they interpret his reception as a genius to mean that he's about to elevate video games to the level of art. Sorry for the out of focusness of that text there. Although I know that it's not a wise idea to probably watch these videos. There's not much to watch here. They're probably more just for listening. Wow, I'm just really hopping all over the place, but just look out for in Game of the Worlds. There's a sexual part that I kind of shocked me. It kind of seemed like maybe not usually the thing you see in Aira novels, which tend to be kind of like family friendly as far as I'm concerned. One last thing I'll say for like the coolest things in, oh, sorry, it was doing that weird out of focus thing because it was on cinematic mode, and now it's in normal mode. One of the coolest things in Festival is the competition between Alex Derrick's mom's book. You know, she put out a book, and Perla Sovietsky's book. So Perla has this book, and then, you know, Alex Derrick's mom just, you know, sells all of her books really quick, even though there's some dramas regarding that. I will say that this isn't even, like, my favorite book by Cesar Aira. I think, like, I mean, like, if I was going to recommend something that was going to make somebody fall in love even quicker, I might recommend Episode in the Life of a Landscape Painter or Art Forum or maybe even How I Became a Nun or something like that. But even, you know, coming in at 6th or 7th in my ranking as this does, or may come in if I were to make a ranking, I still really enjoyed this book. But as you all know, I am a fan. That is you have to take that with a grain of salt. I am a fan. I purchased this book at Room of One's Own Books in Madison, Wisconsin. I was just really happy to see that there was a new Cesar Aira book. There hasn't been a new one for a while, but I know that they're going to come out with 5 novels very soon, which is going to have a big V on the cover. Kind of look like V by Thomas Pynchon or something. And I'm very excited for that, and I really hope to talk about that. I hope I haven't bored you with talk about this book. Oh yeah. If you are still here, which I highly doubt that you are, I love the cover. Like, I love the cover. So the plot, like, an image from the second book is, like, presented as an object from the first book. It's like its own work of art, and it's so unobtrusive and simple. And so it's like a beautiful, simple thing that just kind of serves as a gate into the book that you don't have to think much about. But when you do think about it, not only does it, like, make you kind of put things together in your head about the 2 books, but it's like its own little work of art, you know. It's just really lovely. And also the typography is kind of a little bit fuzzy. Like, it actually kind of looks like it's being projected, like light is being shown through the text slightly. Or maybe that's a trick of the printing, but I think that's really cool. Like, you feel in the whiteness of the type, the light coming through the film that makes that type white against whatever it's being projected against. So really good job, Tyler Comrie. And also this bookmark, the bookmark I used. This is like leafy stuff, you know, like the physical object. This is like a part of a card I received that I cut up and mounted this fortune to. So that's an idea for making a bookmark. Mount a fortune to a little piece of cardstock.